head of global digital business transformation at UCB in the neurology field, Emily Lewis. And really excited to have Emily join us today to talk more about how we're seeing this era of digital health and AI working within the life science industry. Emily, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Stan.
And I know you're very busy and appreciate your time, but it's also great to have you join as a HITLAB fellow, and thank you for joining the HITLAB community.
I love being a part of it. I look forward to these sessions. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So obviously you're steeped in computer sciences and life sciences, and that inflection point. And the beauty of that is that software as a medical device can really help create an agile way for life sciences to be involved in the product life cycle. And when you look at the development of algorithms, what are some of the algorithmic change protocols that you've seen within this context, and how are they affecting life sciences?
So just to back up for a second to kind of define what algorithmic change protocols are. So they're the processes and procedures put in place to manage and control changes to algorithms. And that's particularly in systems that are automated, so automated decision-making systems. And what we're seeing is these protocols can include things like testing procedures, review processes, and oversight mechanisms to ensure that the changes to algorithms are safe, fair, and transparent. And the goal of these change protocols is to mitigate potential negative impacts of algorithmic updates. So we want to minimize biases, errors, and unintended consequences. And the way regulators are looking at this is through the total product life cycle, or TPLC. And so they want to encourage, obviously, some innovation. And so in order to do that, they are kind of empowering device manufacturers to do a couple things. The first is to put together software as a medical device pre-specification documents. And those include looking at what aspects the manufacturer intends to change throughout the learning process. And they are looking for an algorithm change protocol. So this explains, the algorithm change protocol explains how the algorithm will learn and change while remaining safe and effective. So in order for software as medical device manufacturers to remain compliant while being able to iterate on their product, they need to have those two things. And then also they're looking at implementing good machine learning practice, or GMLP, as an industry standard. And so manufacturers would need to follow that as well. So that's, I guess, how we stay current in this field, right? Is you want to be building on your product, you want to be changing your product, you want to improve your product, and in doing so, you want to make sure that the regulators are aware of how you're doing that, so they're comfortable with those changes.
That's fantastic. And from your perspective, sitting really in the middle of the ecosystem there, how are device manufacturers striving to build this trust with their products? Because that's a big ask, right?
Yes, I mean, the only way this field is going to go forward is through building upon trust, because it's lost again and again, as we see in the media, with some faux pas. But the way to really build this trust is through algorithmic transparency. And this is a sticky situation and topic in that a lot of device manufacturers don't want to be completely transparent, because it means compromising maybe on some of their intellectual property. But the FDA and other regulators are really encouraging algorithmic transparency when you're building the product through device labeling. And the best way to do that is through making sure that your algorithms are well understood and explainable by humans. And so stakeholders really need to understand how the algorithm arrived at its output and the decision that it made. We're seeing a lot of examples of this with ChatGPT. I know there's been a lot of references to it today. I mean, algorithms can make poor decisions, right? But if you know why it made that poor decision and what data it pulled from, then you can understand and make a decision about whether you want to implement the decision that it made or carry that forward. So we need to really look at the visibility and explainability of the algorithms. And to do that, we need to make sure of several things. So need to be transparent about the data that was used to train the algorithm, the relevance of its inputs, the logic it employs, the role intended to be served by the output, the evidence of the device's performance, and then ultimately it needs to be transparent about the benefits, risks, and limitations of using the device. So in doing so and being transparent, we need to ensure that the automated decision-making systems are thus fair, unbiased, and trustworthy. And in being transparent, we're also allowed to, or able to detect and correct errors, and then that can allow us to be accountable in the use of these systems. So yes, trust is huge. We need to really make sure that where possible, we can be transparent. And I know there's been a lot of discussions about like using a food label, a parallel of that for the algorithmic transparency. So showing exactly, where the data came from, the calories would be, the inputs, outputs, and how good it is for you, right? How good it is at doing its job, the algorithm. So we need to kind of parlay that into the field of AI and ML.
That's phenomenal. It's great to see that someone with your compassion and your fairness is working inside the system to make sure that it's coming together nicely. And tell me, as someone who sits in the middle of it like that, what are you seeing? How is the performance monitoring going, and what can we do to help you? How can people help out with this? Because this is such an enormous part of the future of healthcare and health equity as we build that.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, software as a medical device manufacturers like ourselves need to have the ability to collect and monitor real-world data of their products once it's commercialized. So we need to make sure that we are assessing and evaluating the performance of the algorithm in a live setting. And in doing so, we can ensure the algorithm's accuracy, fairness, and robustness, and compare how the algorithm is currently performing to how it's expected to be performing and the historical performance of the algorithm. It can also help identify issues that may not be apparent during testing, such as biases in the algorithm or changes that have occurred in the current environment that have affected the algorithm's performance. So real-world performance monitoring is super key to making sure that it continues to perform in the way it's supposed to. And essentially, this monitoring is needed to identify how products are being used in the real world, where and how the algorithms can be improved. And then it also ensures that we have safeguards and controls in place and can deliver the software safely and effectively. So yeah, I guess in summary, we need to make sure that we're building software as medical device products. So currently UCB is building fixed algorithm products, just to be clear. But when we do kind of move to that true AI ML stage, that we're building transparent products, that we're building products that have the ability to collect real world data, and that we are transparent about with the regulators what changes we plan to make in the algorithms and how we plan to make those changes.
It's fantastic. And so one of the things that people have been talking about for a long time is the structure and the purpose of that. What international agencies or what industry agencies and groups are you seeing coming along that are helping provide you with guidance? Someone needs to be the training session and the training orientation here. Where does that come from?
I mean, right now, what I just pulled from is from FDA guidance. We are doing most of our work in the US right now. We are looking abroad as well. And I know we follow the Digital Therapeutics Alliance very closely. They are doing a lot of great policy work. And I know they just came out with some documentation on, trying to lobby the European regulators as well. So check out the Digital Therapeutics Alliance. We also really follow the Digital Medicine Society, DIME. We believe that these products should go through the V3 framework of verification, validation, clinical validation, so analytical and clinical validation. So we look to them as well as, like I said, the regulators like FDA, EMA, TGA, all of those.
And what's happening within the FDA that you've seen where you've seen them come in and try to play a leadership role in this?
Yeah, I mean, they currently have the pre-cert program, right? So we're essentially borrowing, for software as a medical device, we're borrowing the traditional medical device pathway. So it's de novo 510(k) and PMA. And right now, instead of giving a stamp on changes to an existing software as a medical device product, they are saying, rather than looking at each iteration that you build of your software, we will certify you as a company, and we will make sure that you're following good practices. And in doing so, then we trust you to make iterations on your product. So that's the way that the system currently is. There's only certain companies that are within that pre-cert program, but I'm assuming that's how they will carry forward their regulatory purview going forward, but we'll see.
And from your standpoint, is there an algorithm right now that you've seen in the system that's publicly available or publicly known where they are the best in class? They did it the right way, and you're seeing it used in life sciences in a way that is being and adjusting for bias and for diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Unfortunately, what's publicized, right, is a lot of the negative, use cases. I can't say that one comes to mind of a company that's done this perfectly. I mean, a lot of companies are doing what we're doing. We're doing a very fixed algorithm. It's based upon clinical verification and validation. We're looking at how the software performed compared to how the clinician performed at making a rating, for example, in a clinical outcome assessment. And so we're very calculated in this space right now. I mean, healthcare, there's not a lot of willingness to use these dynamic algorithms just yet. And we're still unclear about, the pathway to getting there. We know that we can submit static algorithms to regulators, and as long as we have the clinical evidence behind it, I think those will move forward as software as a medical device. But there are very few companies that I am aware of that are using dynamic, true machine learning algorithms in their software as a medical device product.
This is great, Emily. This is a great conversation. We have to keep having this conversation. So please come back in a few months and give us an update, okay?
Will do. Thanks, Stan.
Thank you for joining us. And again, please give Emily a warm round of applause from the HITLAB Digital Health Symposium community.